may have entered a new Congress since our last meeting, but the basic steps that are needed to end this unfortunate standoff really haven't changed at all. We're in the same place. As I've said on several occasions, and as the administration has affirmed, any viable compromise will need to carry the endorsement of the President before it receives a vote in either House of Congress. Under these conditions, Mr. President, the package presented by the House's new Democratic leaders yesterday can only be seen as a time-wasting act of political posturing. It does not carry the support of the President. In fact, the administration indicated yesterday the President would actually veto it. And it cannot earn the support of 60 of my colleagues over here in the Senate. My friends across the aisle understand the ground rules perfectly well. They know that a solution will need to be palatable to House Democrats and Senate Republicans alike. They know that making laws takes a presidential signature. We all learned that in grade school. In fact, the Democratic leader himself insisted, quote, "The President must publicly support and say he will sign an agreement before it gets a vote in either chamber." That's the Democratic leader said that. So everyone understands what we need to move forward and successfully make policy instead of simply staging political theater. And everyone should understand just how urgently the situation on our nation's border demands our attention. The situation has been accurately described by the Commissioner of the CBP, the Border Patrol, as, quote, "a border security and humanitarian crisis." This shouldn't be taken lightly. It should not be viewed as an opportunity for the new House Democratic majority to prioritize political performance as an art form ahead of the public interest. So I would urge our Democratic colleagues to approach our meeting today with a willingness to join the administration and the men and women of Customs and Border Protection in working to protect our border and bring this partial shutdown to an end. Now, in another matter, while these discussions continue, the Senate will also be taking up other important work. Yesterday, the senior senator from Florida introduced a package of 4 bills that pertain to U.S. policy in the Middle East. I'm a proud co-sponsor of this legislation, along with the chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee-to-be, Senator Risch, and Senator Gardner. It speaks directly to some critical American interests in that part of the world. Our security cooperation with key partners, Israel and Jordan, and the ongoing humanitarian and security catastrophe in the Syrian civil war. First, this legislation recognizes the growing threat Iran, Syria, Hezbollah, Hamas, and other terrorist groups pose to the state of Israel, and aims to strengthen key elements of our relationship with our closest partner in the Middle East. It affirms that the United States needs to walk the walk and authorizes military assistance, cooperative missile defense, as well as loan guarantees. It encourages closer U.S.-Israel technological cooperation to better address 21st century threats, and it clearly states that it is official U.S. policy to help Israel preserve its qualitative military edge over those who might wish it harm. The legislation also recognizes the security, economic, and humanitarian challenges the ongoing conflict in Syria poses to the people and government of Jordan, and reauthorizes important legislation aimed at deepening our defense cooperation with this important regional partner. In addition, the bill contains a bipartisan provision from Senators Rubio and Manchin to combat the BDS movement, an aggressive and hostile attempt to delegitimize and economically boycott the state of Israel. This legislation gives state and local governments across America more flexibility to limit their own business relationships with entities that support this horrible effort to hurt our ally. In effect, this provision allows jurisdictions to boycott the boycotters. Let me say that again. To boycott the boycotters and make sure they don't send taxpayer dollars to companies who embrace this anti-Israel posture. Now, with respect to the ongoing conflict in Syria, there are certainly differing views about the role of the U.S. military with respect to the threats emanating from Syria. There's no question that we continue to face serious challenges from al-Qaeda and ISIS in Syria, as well as from Iran, Russia, and the Assad regime itself. And I anticipate this body will debate U.S. military strategy toward Syria in the coming weeks as it conducts oversight over the administration's apparently ongoing review of its Syria policy. Admittedly, there are no easy solutions in Syria. I hope the administration and Congress will be deliberate and sober as we consider the risk of various approaches to the endgame of the fight against the physical caliphate of ISIS. After all, American lives, critical national security interests, and the future of a turbulent yet critical region are all at stake. The debate is forthcoming. I imagine it could be contentious. There should be little debate, however, about the Syria Civilian Protection Act, which has overwhelming bipartisan support and the endorsement of the administration. This bill, which is included in this package, speaks to the human tragedy of the Syrian civil war. It provides non-military tools for responding to the atrocities conducted by the regime of Bashar al-Assad. It will hold accountable those responsible for the torture and murder of countless Syrian civilians and provide more leverage for diplomats to end the conflict through peaceful negotiations, consistent with the demands of the UN Security Council Resolution 2254. Unless the Syrian regime changes course, ends its brutality against the Syrian people, and negotiates a peaceful end to the civil war, the butchers of Damascus will find their key financial institutions and industries sanctioned by the United States. This bill will not bring back the hundreds of thousands of Syrians who've been murdered or tortured by the regime, but it will be another arrow in the quiver of diplomats who are seeking to end this awful war and stabilize a region of critical importance to the United States and its allies. So I'm proud to co-sponsor the package of legislation that Senator Rubio introduced yesterday. I'm clearing the way for the bill S-1 to be debated and voted on here on the Senate floor as early as next week, and I look forward to voting to pass this important bill.
Under the previous order, the